If I could press a button and take just one thing from you, I wouldn't take your strength or your eyesight or your memory. I'd take your language, and not because you'd go silent, because you'd lose the system that organizes almost everything you call thinking. Imagine waking up tomorrow and still seeing the world, still recognizing faces, still feeling hunger and fear, but you can't name anything. You can't build sentences in your head. You can't tell yourself what's happening. You can't say, not now, later. You can't turn a feeling into a plan. You'd still have intelligence, but it would feel scattered, like a powerful computer with no operating system. Today, I want to argue something that sounds dramatic, but it changes how you see humans. Language isn't just a skill. Language is the technology that turns a brain into a civilization. First, we have to fix a common mistake. When people hear language, they think talking. But language is bigger than speech. Language is listening and catching intention. It's reading and writing. It's gestures and facial expressions. It's rhythm and tone. It's signals, symbols, maps, and code. Even math is a language. Because the core isn't sound, the core is meaning. Now watch what language actually does inside your mind. Without language, the world hits you like an avalanche of details. With language, the world becomes categories. Danger, safe, mine, yours, us, them, fair, unfair, now, later. Those words feel simple, but they behave like buttons. You press one, and a whole bundle of memory, emotion, and strategy loads instantly. That's why some psychologists describe language as a compression tool. You take thousands of details and compress them into one word. Storm isn't just rain. Storm is dark sky, wind, risk, noise, wet clothes, power outages, and maybe don't go out right now. One word carries a whole packet of prediction. That's an insane efficiency hack for the brain. Without compression, you'd have to reevaluate everything from scratch every second. With compression, you think faster, decide faster, learn faster. Language saves mental energy. And here's the next level. Language doesn't just describe the world. It shapes the world you can notice. When you learn new words for color shades, flavors, smells, or emotions, you start detecting those differences more clearly in real life. Your brain gets sharper because it now has better boxes to sort reality into. That's why experts can feel like they have super senses. Wine people, coffee people, musicians, chefs, perfumers. It's not only training the ear or the palate, it's vocabulary. It's having labels for nuances that used to be a blur. When you gain language, you gain perception. You literally start noticing what used to slide past you. Now think of language as the mind's operating system. It lets you label the world, compare things, build categories, and create rules. That changes decision-making, because danger isn't something you see. It's a conclusion. Justice isn't something you touch. It's a concept. Probability has no color. It's a tool. And those tools only become stable when they become shared symbols. This is where math comes in. Math is language in hard mode. It takes a lot and a little and turns them into quantity. It takes maybe and turns it into probability. It lets you think precisely about things everyday language keeps vague. The moment you give your brain a precise symbol, you give it leverage. You can build ideas that would be impossible to hold using feelings alone. Now here's an effect most people don't notice, but it runs your life. Language amplifies memory. When you narrate an experience, this happened, then that happened, I felt this, I chose that, you're not just telling a story to someone else. You're organizing the experience for yourself. You're turning chaos into sequence. And sequence is way easier to store and retrieve. That's why, after something intense happens, talking it out, writing it down, or even recording a voice note can make it feel clearer later. The narrative becomes a trail. Trails are retrievable, and this leads to something even bigger. Language doesn't just boost your memory, it lends you memory. Books, laws, manuals, the internet, notebooks, recipes, research papers, maps. That's memory outside your skull. Humans basically built a shared brain, distributed across time. A place where knowledge doesn't die when one person dies. Without recorded language, every generation would restart almost from zero. With recorded language, you're born inside a library. You inherit centuries of trial and error without having to personally relive it. That isn't a nice bonus. That's the difference between a small group surviving and a technological civilization. Now let's talk about one of the most misunderstood human behaviors, talking to yourself. People joke that self-talk is crazy. In reality, it's mental technology. It's how you steer attention, control impulses, and keep a plan active. Kids do it constantly while learning tasks. They narrate. They give themselves instructions. They say the rule out loud so they can follow it. And here's something revealing. When certain brain injuries damage language or speech, a person can still think, yes, but they often lose efficiency in planning and fine control of actions. Like the control panel is harder to access. The engine still exists. The buttons are just less reachable. That tells you something critical. Language isn't only communication with others, it's communication with yourself. Now here's a practical superpower that sounds too simple to matter, but it does. Naming what you feel often reduces the intensity of the emotion and increases control. Instead of, I feel awful, you get more specific. I'm anxious. I'm irritated. I'm frustrated. I'm ashamed. It sounds small, but it forces the feeling into a category. And once it's in a category, you can work with it. It's like turning on the light in a dark room. The monster becomes an object. You may not like the object, but now you can act. But language has a darker side. If it organizes the world, it can also distort the world. Labels become shortcuts, and shortcuts can be dangerous. When something is called natural, people feel it must be better. When something is called luxury, people feel it must be worth more. When someone is called enemy, the brain flips into a different mode. Words aren't neutral. They drag emotion and decision along with them. There's a classic decision effect that proves this. The same fact can feel different depending on framing. Saying 90% survival hits your brain one way. Saying 10% mortality hits another way, even though it's the same information. The mind doesn't react only to content. It reacts to the shape of the language. Now hold that thought, because we have to zoom out to society. Language is the glue that makes large societies possible. Without language, you can't build large-scale trust. You can't build law. You can't build complex trade. You can't build science. You can't coordinate thousands of people who don't personally know each other. You can't build stable group identity. And here's a weird one people love to dismiss. Gossip. It sounds petty, but gossip has a social function. It maps reputation. It signals alliances. It reinforces group rules. It teaches who cooperates, who cheats, and who pays the price. In cold terms, gossip is informal governance. It's language doing maintenance on the social fabric. Now here's something even stranger. Language creates social reality. Money, contracts, marriage, companies, borders, property. None of these exist like rocks or trees. They exist because humans agree to believe in symbols and shared rules. A piece of paper becomes money because there's a collective story backed by law, education, and trust, all mediated by language. So when someone says it's just paper, that's true. But just paper can move an entire country because language creates shared imagined worlds, and those imagined worlds move the physical world. If you want the peak version of this, look at science. Science is, in part, extremely disciplined language, clear definitions, hypotheses, measurements, methods, replication, a whole community trying to say exactly what they did so another community can repeat it. Science isn't only test tubes, it's a language agreement built for precision. Without language, there is no science as an engine that accumulates knowledge. Now here's the difference between humans and basically everything else. Animals communicate, many do it impressively. But humans have something rare. We can create infinite sentences from finite pieces. We can nest ideas inside ideas. We can talk about things that are not here. The past, the future, the imaginary, rules, systems, abstractions. This creates a superpower that might matter more than any individual IQ. Collective intelligence. A lone human, isolated, doesn't invent the modern world. The modern world came from billions of brains linked through language and cooperation, stacking knowledge across generations like one giant mind spread through time. And the way language appears in a child is one of the most beautiful mysteries in nature. Kids don't learn language like a school subject. They extract patterns. They do statistics without knowing they're doing statistics. They connect sound to context, gaze to intention, repetition to rule. There's also a sensitive window. The earlier the exposure, the more natural it feels. Later, you can still learn, but it usually takes more effort, and the brain often leaves fingerprints like a stronger accent. And here's an interesting side note. Bilingualism, for some people and in some tasks, can train cognitive flexibility because the brain has to manage two competing systems and choose the right one in real time. It's like running two keyboards on the same computer and switching instantly. That takes control. Now let's return to the dangerous side. Language is power. Whoever controls definitions controls the debate. Redefine a term and you change the playing field. You decide what counts as normal, what counts as extreme, what counts as a threat. And many people think in ready-made phrases, slogans, and scripted lines without noticing. It saves mental energy, but it can shrink critical thinking. You feel like you're thinking, but you're really repeating. That's why controlling language often means controlling attention, controlling narrative, and controlling what future people can even imagine. And here's one last point that sounds like sci-fi, but it's pretty grounded. The brain treats language and movement as connected. When you process action words, the brain often simulates the action internally, as if language is a kind of mental virtual reality. Reading run, grab, push isn't only understanding, it's a partial rehearsal. That may be part of why stories hit so hard. Narratives are a form of intelligence. Humans don't only store facts. Humans organize facts into stories. And the brain remembers a story with emotion better than a cold list of data. Advertising and politics use this because it works. Literature uses it too, but for something deeper, like training theory of mind, practicing how to imagine other people's thoughts and emotions, learning people without living every life. So now I'm going to close the loop and return to the claim from the beginning. If you want to argue that language is the most important human intelligence, here's the strongest case. Language is the mechanism that integrates and multiplies every other kind of intelligence. Logic becomes teachable, technique becomes transferable, emotion becomes regulatable, memory becomes shareable, cooperation becomes scalable, imagination becomes a plan, and a plan becomes a world. Language isn't just a skill, it's the technology that turns a brain into a civilization. And if you want a quick experiment, spend one day noticing how often you use language to think, not to speak, to plan, to calm yourself, to talk yourself into courage, to talk yourself out of impulse, to say not now, to say I need to change. You'll realize you don't just live in a body, you live inside a narrative. If this made you see language differently, drop your take in the comments and send topic ideas you want me to cover next. I read everything, I pull the best suggestions, and I'm posting a new video every day.